Hey, we are back and we are still on the road to Nanyuki. I don't even know where we are. Where are we now? Are we Nyeri?
Yeah, so we're approaching Nyeri town. We just passed Karatina. We're, I think, about 8 kilometers past Karatina.
Karatina.
Yeah.
I'm sure you know these roads like on the back of your hand.
Yeah, I can drive in my sleep.
I'm sure. So yeah, I was wondering. So I am in investment banking, and some of the transactions that we do are very interesting. You know, you have a farm. You know, you have a business that's on a farm, agribusiness. Let me put it that way, and they're looking to sell their business, and a transaction fails and doesn't go through because, or even a school. You know, you want to sell your school, but then you find the founders of this business load the value of the land on the business, and so the buyers or the people who are looking to invest in this business are just like, by the way, I'm not buying land, I'm buying your school, or I'm buying the agribusiness that's on the land, and I need the land to do the business. I'm not buying the land to build apartments or to subdivide and sell. And so the value of land in Kenya, because it's just so high and it's gone up so high in such a short period of time and continues to go up every year, really affects the way transactions are done here. And it is unique, by the way. It's not been seen. A lot of the private equity funds that come into the country from other parts of the world are just like, by the way, this is not, it's not common, and land doesn't typically become an issue, but in Kenya it is. And so the question I have is, this growth and the fast rate of growth in land as we've seen it in the last couple of years, is it sustainable in your view?
Well, I spend considerable amounts of time thinking about this, you know, both from my personal understanding and also from the business side of things. And you know, I think for as long as demand outstrips supply, that's only gonna keep getting worse. And in some cases, granted, it's an artificial scenario, right? In many cases, in my experience, the price of a sale will depend on who the seller is, who they're selling to, and why. And that is partially because of the mistrust in the industry in general. The opacity in the system, crazy due diligence, high levels of fraud. So you know, I've made decisions more than 2-3 times to pay more for a property than is generally available in an area, simply because I trust the seller and their documents were in order. And so I'd have more peace of mind acquiring the property that way, instead of paying, whether it's market rates or cheaper, for something that's a bit more questionable. And so that's part of the dynamics. But you know, for as long as demand will outstrip supply, that'll always be the case. Whether or not it's sustainable, you know, I like to leave that to the economists.
I really wonder. I mean, you travel to places like Cape Town, you know, in South Africa. Okay, now there's an issue there, we have no water, but they're about to run out of water completely, which is a sad situation. However, real estate there is cheaper than in Nairobi.
Imagine that.
And Cape Town is such a stunning city. It is amazing, and with
proper amenities,
proper amenities. It functions well. It is actually just, the natural beauty in that city is just mind-blowing. And if you want to buy an apartment, a house, a piece of land, it's cheaper than in Nairobi.
Absolutely.
When you look at Nairobi, I mean, there's sections of it that are okay. You know, Kenya has a lot to offer. Yes, it does. I mean, it's a beautiful country as well. But you cannot compare Nairobi and Cape Town.
Yeah, true.
Let me just be real. So, I don't think it makes sense. Does it? What is it about Nairobi, for example? I mean, like Upper Hill, how much is a piece of land in Upper Hill now? Like a half?
I just saw an ad. Actually, I got an ad from a real estate agency yesterday. There's a 2.5 acre piece of land in Upper Hill that's on the market now for 2 billion shillings. 2 billion.
Wow.
Bobs. That's $20 million for 2.5 acres. That's insane. Upper Hill is actually currently the most expensive locale for land investments or land acquisition in Africa outside of Sandton, South Africa, statistically, which is insane. And you can't compare the two cities or two areas in terms of infrastructure, utilities, accessibility, even ownership profile, GDP and whatnot, right? So what's with that? And I think this is where the artificial glut or appetite comes in. And I actually did an episode on our channel about this once, about the gentrification of sorts that's happening in Nairobi. Nairobians...
Sorry, that's a big word. Gentrification. Please tell me what that means.
So gentrification is a real estate term, generally referring to trying to find a politically correct way to put this. So making a place bougie.
Okay, bougie.
Like posh. So you push out the lower class
really?
of ownership.
Okay.
By outpricing them. So I went to college in a place called Savannah, Georgia, which, when we arrived, had very bad neighborhoods, drug infested, crime ridden, and boarded up, ugly looking pieces of properties. Okay. But they were historic buildings built 200 years ago. So what happened is wealthy individuals from Northern America would come, buy these properties, refurbish them, make them stunning pieces of architecture. They would have them revalued, and they'd be valued much higher. So I knew of one property, they bought it for $65,000, rehabilitated it then valued for almost $500,000 based on the improvements made.
Okay.
So what that did to the neighbors next door is that 1 year they went from paying $1,000 in property taxes to getting a bill of $10,000 because that property increased the value of properties around it. Right?
So the land rates are...
Yes, land rates go up. The owners can't afford them anymore, so they get auctioned or they leave. And then the people who can afford take up these properties for pennies on the dollar. Wow. And so what tends to happen is the lower income individuals, whether owners or residents, get pushed out because it's too expensive to maintain in terms of annual taxes or just keep the lights on or whatever. And then the wealthier, more affluent population steps in, make improvements to infrastructure so it becomes a nicer place and so on. But you've essentially changed the population demographic for the area that way. So that's what gentrification means. Okay. And that's what's happening in Nairobi. Places like Westlands, Upper Hill, even Kilimani. In Westlands now, the biggest deals have been done by foreign nationals, the Chinese, the Nigerians. The local Kenyan can no longer afford land in Westlands or Upper Hill for that matter. So
here's the other question. If I'm buying land for 2 billion shillings, what am I putting up there that will bring a return that will pay back that money?
Right, and this is where I tend to have an issue. Okay. So in my own thinking, I believe the best way to go about figuring out transaction values. So I honestly believe that market value and transaction values do not always have to be the same thing. So a property could be valued, it could very well be valued at 2.5 billion.
Right. Okay, I hear you.
Right.
But then the transaction doesn't happen at that price.
Yes, because whoever's buying that piece of property may not be able to pull out that value regardless of what they do with it. So as a seller, does it make sense for me to force the buyer to pay 2.5 billion? So I'd think backwards. If I'm going to put up a 40-story block of apartments or commercial space or offices, and I'm going to sell each square meter at a particular price, how much will that yield me versus how much is going to cost for the land and construction and permits and so on? So I tend to think that we need to work backwards. What will the market absorb now in terms of finished product prices versus cost? Right. And then that should therefore determine the transaction value.
Okay. Makes sense.
Right, but and so that's where the questions of sustainability comes in, because if as a buyer it doesn't not make any sense for me anymore to do the transaction because of the cost of land, I'm not going to buy, and the seller will not get a buyer. It'll be on the market forever, and then probably what will happen is I lower my price to 1.5 billion in order to get the buyer, and I might end up selling it for $1 billion, and that's always a negative thing when sale prices start to go down, because it has a ripple effect
on other transactions.
Yes, and you have a depressed market, which is great for the buyers, horrible for revenue generation in terms of taxes and investment in general. So I think we need more collaborative conversations around this from the policymakers, government side, the Ministry of Ministry of Finance, property experts. All the stakeholders need to sit down and agree on the most reasonable way to handle this kind of question.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. Very intelligent conversation right there. I'm just like, yeah. But it is true. I think there needs to be a collaborative effort, definitely. Because when you look at what's happening, it's like, surely we'll not be able to afford to even live in this country, as the years go by. Anyway, you are watching All Access. We're still on our way to Nanyuki, and we'll keep you posted. I'm going to see some piece of land that we bought, and I have not seen it since we did, and just kind of understand. And I decided to plug into Solomon's day. So he's off to work, and I'm just on the ride and experiencing what he typically does on, every other day. So keep watching, subscribe if you haven't, and if you have any questions regarding land, buying of land, the processes, the due diligence process, please do ask, and I'll make sure to get Solomon or his team to respond. Take care.